This is Into the Fire.
I'd like to welcome the young upcoming US track and field athlete, one of the most promising pole vaulters in the world, the terrific guy and spectacular athlete, Matt Ludwig. Nice to meet you, Matt.
Nice to meet you as well, Liam. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Well, Matt, you live in the US and things are crazy at the moment. Hope you're staying out of trouble.
Well, no promises, but I'm doing my best. I'm at least getting my training in, so that's the best part.
Yeah. Now, let's look at the pole vault and the scariest and most dangerous track and field event in the world. How and why did you get into this sport?
Well, I started my freshman year of high school or primary school. I believe I was 15 at the time. And really, my mom kind of led me towards it. My older sister had done it. She had done gymnastics as her primary sport, and she decided to do pole vault as well during the spring. And I had done gymnastics for about 4 years as well through my childhood. So she kind of figured, well, she was pretty good at it and she did gymnastics. I think you could do pretty well also. So I tried it out. And after my first year, I was pretty hooked. I jumped, 12 feet, but that would be maybe 270 in metric. So nothing crazy. 370, excuse me, maybe 370. Nothing crazy. But I knew from then I wanted to kind of pole vault as much as I could. And by the end of high school, I was a 5-meter vaulter, and that was kind of where I set my path for university and for the pole vault.
Yeah, nice. So you went to Akron University. I love the college system. I take it you went there for its rich history in pole vault and their great coach. How big a deal is being a track and field athlete in university?
Oh, it's spectacular. We have, in the NCAA, we have plenty. We have a huge amount of international athletes and students that come in to get their degrees and also to compete. And so I'm very fortunate to be in a system, the collegiate system, where we can compete against each other so rigorously and consistently. I know in internationally or elsewhere in the world, it's really club-based, and it can be a little difficult to have the opportunities to travel and compete at a scale that the university system provides. So super lucky and fortunate for that. But University of Akron is great with Coach Dennis Mitchell. He produced former world champion Sean Barber in 2015 in the pole vault, and he's a brilliant mind in the sport. So I'm really fortunate, and that's partly why I chose the university. He's a brilliant mind.
Yeah, he's a great coach. Any cool fraternity stories?
Nothing crazy, to be honest. We had one experience or one adventure where one of our friends climbed this 20-30 foot tree and was taking some really fun pictures and videos and out over this fairly large crowd. And so we got him down safely and everything was good. But that was a bit of a wild time. But otherwise, no, not really. We have a great sense of camaraderie and fellowship and brotherhood and sisterhood on the track and field team there. So any experiences we kind of all have together, which is really nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Now, what a 2017 you had, finishing top 2 in 8 meets and winning 4 titles. You were the outdoor 2017 NCAA champion, clearing 5.6 meters. I bet this did a lot for you, your popularity on campus.
Well, a bit. It's a double-edged sword, I suppose. Track and field in the United States isn't the most popular sport out there, but it certainly was news that the University of Akron had produced a national champion, another one. And for us in particular, for our team, we had a streak, and I was the 5th national title in consecutive years outdoors. So all the way from, at the time, 2012 through 2017, we had a national champion every single year. So that was kind of spectacular for us. But yeah, it helped immensely. One of the cornerstones of my career to this point, that along with the 2020 U.S. Indoor Championship. Those are kind of the 2 main titles that I have to my name right now. So the next goal is to, this U.S. Indoors, the World Indoor Championships were postponed until 2023 at this point. But the next major team is the Olympic team. So that's kind of the goal, to establish my career a bit further.
Yeah. 2018 and 2019, you continued to get better, increasing your height off the bar. Did you feel now, after 3 years on the collegiate circuit, you were more than ready to take on the world in such a hard event?
Whew, I don't know if I felt ready at the time, but I'm really glad that I started competing internationally and facing some much tougher fields as soon as I did. Um, it was a very different experience to be going against world champions, world leaders, national record holders fairly consistently. And it's a very different mindset to have to be in as opposed to doing a collegiate meet where you may be the best person showing up. And so the mentality change that it took was very exciting for me to learn and progress through. But I think at this point, a year post collegiate, a year pro now at this point, um, that confidence has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's not every day someone can say, I'm the world's best. But for a very brief moment in January 2019, you could say that. Jumping 5.83 meters. Did you run around saying to everyone, I'm the world's best? I know someone jumped the same height later that day, but hey, you were first. You held it for 6 days. I bet it felt good though.
It was a very cool experience. I didn't run around as much as you might think, but between my friend groups and between the people that posted it on social medias, some people reached out and they're like, "Wait, did you break the world record in this?" And I was like, "No, not the world record. I was just the best in this season at this time." And I had to spell it out a little bit. But either way, it's exciting to sort of be in the conversation. And yeah, it was a really nice day. It was not frustrating to hear that it had been like tied or broken within a couple days, but for that period of time, it was really nice, like I said, to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I love the US so much, one of my favourite places to visit, but it has been crippled by COVID. You were flying, literally with your event, and then COVID hit. What have you done to be ready for a crack at the Olympics?
It's really just been. At first, it was very difficult with lockdowns and shutdowns. We had no facilities to train in, and so or they wouldn't let us in, or you had to have a private facility or something of the sort. And so, for several months, it was bouncing between any available spot. Finally, the universities kind of opened up again a bit more, and going through appropriate testing protocols and all. I can train regularly as I have been the last few years. But how am I preparing? I am doing my usual 4 or 5 days a week, getting my jumping in. And just at this point, I've had one competition this year, and I'm really just trying to get back to that mode where I'm competing again, getting over bars, giving myself only 3 attempts, and just getting ready to compete, trying to find some good competition and go against the world's best, because that's what it'll take to make the team.
Yeah, good answer. Now, the Olympic trials intrigue me because there are 11 US pole vaulters in the top 50 in the world, ranked 29. What do you need to do to grab one of those spots in the US team? And how many can they take?
The U.S. team can take 3, and so it comes down to it's essentially a 2-day event. So there's a preliminary round for the pole vault with I believe 24 entrants or so, and they get down to a field of 12 for the final. And so in the final, they take the top 3 athletes on that day, who also have the Olympic standard, which is 580. And I think as you mentioned, there's 11 or 12 Americans who have that standard qualified for this Tokyo Olympics. So it will take getting through I'm qualified as it is now for the Olympic trials and for the Olympic Games with my marks. So now I have to get through the preliminary round to the final, and then the final I need to finish in the top 3, and that will put me on the Olympic team.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you've had a few injuries over the time. What sort of injuries have you had to overcome? And how are you at the moment going into such a big year?
The main one I would say was last year. I went a little bit sideways on a jump, and we had a little bit of a setup malfunction with our pit area. And so where there should have been another pad, it wasn't there at the time. And I ended up falling I had cleared a 5.5 meter bar, gone off to the right and fallen straight onto track surface where it should have been padded. And so I fell kind of like right on my hip, a little bit kind of like on my butt, and very swollen, no bone damage, which I was super thankful for, but just really swollen and really, really uncomfortable, hard to run for a couple months after that. It took a lot of time to rehab it and get back to normal. I actually had to get up and then 6 days later competed our conference championship and then go on to our NCAA or our collegiate regional, intermediate preliminary round and then get through to the finals. And so I was basically still competing on an injured leg a little bit. So that was tough. Back to 100% though. And coming into this year, it's been interesting. I've had to add some pre-practice stuff to my warm-up, some pre-warm-up routines when it comes to muscle activation, to specific stretches, specific strength exercises to try to compensate for what was injured a little bit.
Yeah, it would have hurt. You were the first American athlete to wear a safety mask in an event. What brought about that?
It was an interesting opportunity. My agent had reached out and he called and asked if I had anything planned for a specific date. I said no. He said, well, you're going to want to save this one. There's a company called Fine Hygienics Holding. They make a fine guard mask. If you're comfortable jumping in a mask, they'd like to have you compete in a competition they're hosting. It's a virtual meet, so you'll find a location and jump alongside a live stream with these other athletes, being Tiago Braz da Silva, the reigning Olympic champion, Paweł Wojciechowski from Poland, and who's also a former world champ, Ernst Albania, and I believe that is it, the four of us. So we had a really good field, star-studded field, you could say. And that for me was probably one of my coolest opportunities, getting to do a live stream that at one point had a peak viewership of 1.5 million viewers at one time. And over the span of the whole competition, over 2.5 million viewers live. So that was for me intimidating, but a really cool experience.
Yeah, that would have been so cool. Okay, some different questions. How long did it take you to not fear dying?
It's interesting because at first you're not high enough off the ground to be worried about it. But by the time you do start getting high enough that it's concerning, you're more comfortable with the event. And so I think at no point was I really too scared of it. And I think the gymnastics helped a lot because I was always doing flips and going upside down and being in the air and putting my body in some weird positions. And so I've enjoyed it. It was always a big rush, adrenaline rush. Although you can definitely get to the point now where I recognize if I've done something incorrectly. And that's a little bit scary if I feel like I'm out of control or I'm not sure where I'm landing. There's a little bit on the fly learning. But I think I'm over it. It's like the worst things that could happen are you could sort of break a pole or you could bend the pole and then come back towards the track and not make it all the way to the pit. And so I've done that enough times that it's not fun to do. I don't recommend it, but it's not as scary as it used to be.
Yeah. How awesome is that drop from the height after clearing a big height?
Oh, it's can't really explain it. It's one of those things that you go up and you just sort of, you're through the entire part of the jump. You're worried about doing things correctly, about doing the technique, about trying to feel and make sure you don't hit the bar off and that you go over it. And then by the time that you push off and really pay attention to where you are, you've pretty much cleared the bar. So you just have this like sort of sigh of relief, this breath of success, and you're like, I did it again. And especially going over something like a personal best or knowing that it's going to help you win a competition, man, you know that you're falling, you want to enjoy it, but at the same time you want to jump up and just cheer and throw your arms and stuff. And so it's some of the celebrations are one of the most fun parts about the event.
Yeah. How do you transport that pole to different meets, in particular overseas?
Whew, that's tough. They go on planes. And so domestic or in the United States, if I'm going to fly from state to state, I'll try to fly Southwest Airlines because they'll put them on their planes and the cost for them is a little bit cheaper than going with United. And for international flights, I'll go with United. And they have, so I have to, well, thankfully now I have a manager who helps book my travel for me. But at the time I had to look up flights for dates and times to the locations, but I also had to look into the flight information about the size of the plane. And I had to know which sizes of planes would fit pole bags because that would be a concern. So I had to do a lot of learning a bit on the fly, which I didn't think I'd have to about planes, but we fly them. I bring them into the airport just as any other customer would, and everyone looks around and ducks their heads and it's like, what are those? Sails, skis, javelins? And I'm like, oh no, they're pole vault poles. But I go up to the check-in counter and ask to check them through to my destination. And after a little fee, we're good to go. And they arrive at the luggage.
Yeah. Have you had any big mishaps while pole vaulting?
I've broken 2 poles. So that's probably the main thing. One of them broke and actually shot up from the bottom and hit me in the back of the head. And I had to get a couple stitches because it kind of split my head open a little bit. But a couple days later, I went on to have a personal best performance after that. So it must have knocked some sense into me. So I did it correctly. But then the other one was I broke it, but no damages, no issues for me. Any other issues? I've had poles not arrive on time. Thankfully, though, it was only going home, so I just had to come back a couple days later and pick it up. It wasn't going to a meet, so knock on wood, let's hope that doesn't happen. But I haven't had to borrow poles yet or anything crazy. But there's a lot of different stories out there. There was one instance with, I believe it was Alicia Newman, and she flew from, I think, from Canada overseas to Europe. And upon arriving, her pole bag and the poles inside had been legitimately circle sawed in half because they thought that it was just some material that they could just cut into pieces and send along. And so all of her poles had been cut in half, and she was like lost without poles. And so she had to get a whole new set remade, and it was just a problem. But thankfully, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, that would have been a pain. So where to next for you, Matt?
For me, I will stick around home for a couple weeks, but I'll actually be headed off to Europe late January. I'll compete the 29th. I will start in Karlsruhe, Germany, and then I will do a couple different meets between Germany, France, and Poland. And I'll finish in Torun, Poland, on February 17th or 12th, whatever date the Orland Copernicus Cup is there. And so I'll go around and I'll do a couple weeks in Europe, and I'll head back home. Hopefully, we were hoping to do U.S. Championship again, but that just got canceled yesterday. So there will be no U.S. Championship indoors for us. But I'm still really lucky and fortunate to be able to travel overseas and get a good series of competitions in.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, Matt, you do one of the hardest and most challenging sports, and one that when you achieve those massive heights must give you the greatest rush. Well, imagine this. You're at the Olympics, you're on that runway. You put the pole down and start to fly somewhere you have never been before. And you go over the bar. It's the Olympics, arguably the greatest event in the world. You need to be ready when you hit that mat to give the TV and crowd the greatest celebration in sporting history. And you can have mine, mate. The Into the Fire.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Liam. That was a lot of fun.
You must have been practicing that first part.
You nailed it. I don't know. Me?
Yeah, you. You must have been practicing. Pretty
Oh
good.
no, I'm off the top. I've done a few interviews, but you've probably done more than me. That was really good.
Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough for chatting to me today. You're an amazing athlete and a wonderful person. Good luck in your pursuit to become an Olympian, mate. I can't wait to watch you soar.
Cheers, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you, Liam.
It's been so great, Matt.